Okay. So thank you. My name is Ashleigh Eaton, and I work for the Lower Mainland Purpose Society. And Purpose is located in New Westminster, but we have a variety of different kind of facets that we kind of work at. So we've got early childhood education, but the site that I work at is in Burnaby, and it is called the Burnaby Youth Hub. And my role there is as a youth worker. And so the Burnaby Youth Hub is kind of a one-stop shop for a variety of different programs and services that young people might need. And so when I say young people, I'm talking about people who are typically between the ages of 12 and 19 to maybe 22, kind of would be our max. We're pretty flexible. We try and meet the needs of every youth when they come. And so these programs and services can look like a lot of different things. We have an alternate education program for secondary school students. So if you don't feel like you fit into the typical secondary school experience due to whatever reason, you can attend the hub. We also have a sexual health clinic for youth under 22. And then we also provide programming for youth who might need it. So things like girls' empowerment groups or anxiety groups. And so all of these things are housed under one space. We also provide food for any young person who might need it and support services. So essentially, my job is to do anything and everything that a young person might need. And so as a youth worker, this can look like me sitting with a young person when they're waiting on scary news from a doctor, or me driving them to their next counseling appointment, or taking them for coffee when they've gone through a particularly difficult breakup. And so we very much work to, we value and we work to embody the Sustainable Development Goals in all of the work that we do. And so a lot of the programs that we have translate directly to the Sustainable Development Goals themselves. Things like gender equality or reduced or no poverty or quality education. All of these things are pieces that we work to put into the interactions that we have with youth every single day. And we know that youth are dynamic. So every single individual that I come into contact with, I know that they've got a whole set of needs that are going to be completely different from someone else's. And so when I started at the Burnaby Youth Hub 2.5 years ago, my boss said, we need to run groups. And so I know that we're all technically youth here today because we're under the age of 30, but in the eyes of a 14-year-old, I am an adult. So with my adult eyes and my adult brain, I looked around the space and I perceived what I saw young people might need. And so what I saw were young people on their cell phones, not engaging with each other, not talking, and not really having impactful conversations. And so I decided with my adult brain and my adult eyes that we were going to run a drop-in group and that was going to fix everything. Kids would love that, right? They would talk to each other and they would feel really happy about it. It obviously did not work out that well. Kids attended some of them and they liked it a little bit, but it was actually in the conversations and the relationships that I made with these young people that I really had my aha moment. And I was speaking with a young man who recently had been kicked out of his home. And he was put into foster care. He was telling me his story, and he had come out to his family as gay. And unfortunately, his family rejected him. They cut him off financially and told him essentially that he could leave. For his safety and well-being, obviously, he was taken into foster care. And he had a fairly positive experience, but he had to continuously come out first to his social worker, then to his counselor, then to his youth worker, and then to his next secondary school. And it really got me thinking about all the barriers that this young person had to face. And it really struck a chord with me because I faced a lot of challenges when I came out as gay, but not as many as this young man. And so it really got me thinking about how many more young people were going to face discrimination, not necessarily outright discrimination, but what we call microaggressions. Just pieces of not accepting another human being. And so I was really fortunate in that I had a lot of colleagues at the Ministry of Children and Family Development who had similar thoughts and similar concerns and who wanted to tackle this issue as well. And so what we did was we gathered youth together who identified as LGBTQ, and we asked them about their experiences. We spoke to them as individuals. We honored the fact that they each had individual, unique stories. We heard stories from some folks who said that their social worker misgendered them. And not in a cruel, intentional way, but because their intake forms only had 2 boxes. The one box was an M for male, and the other box was an F for female. And so we wanted to have conversations about how to change these systems, because it just wasn't working for these young people. Excuse me. And so what we decided to do was come together and create a group that actually had meaning and impact, unlike my drop-in group. And we called this group Queer the Way. And so that's what you're seeing behind you. A quick word about the name itself. So these young teenagers decided that that's the name that they wanted to use. And we talked to them a little bit about how the term queer didn't always have the most positive impact on folks. Generations, not even that long ago, used that word in a discriminatory way. However, these youth really identified with that term as like an umbrella word for LGBTQ. Anyways, they decided that Queer the Way was their mission, and what this group ended up becoming was a training workshop for professionals. So we had teenagers teaching adults how to do their jobs better. It's a really crazy concept, but it's actually it worked amazingly, and it was wildly successful. And so we presented to upper management at MCFD, we presented to counselors, we presented to youth workers, frontline staff, and we also presented to youth themselves, and we got their feedback. We were really fortunate and we were really lucky to be able to receive a grant, which allowed us to pay the young people who came up on stage and did these things, facilitated in front of a lot of potentially scary individuals who may not accept them. But what I found, and what gave me a lot of hope and inspiration for the future, was that these professionals sitting in the crowd were so excited and geared up to make these changes for these young people. They were motivated. They decided that they would change their intake forms. They practiced on each other using gender-neutral language so that they wouldn't further offend someone who came in and identified as a non-binary gender person. I thought that was great. I thought that was enough, that I could walk away and all these professionals were excited and happy. But what I really found the most impactful piece for me was that these youth were really happy. They finally, for the first time, felt heard and respected and honored and celebrated for who they were as individuals. And that's something that I didn't expect to see. And so I think that a piece of the Sustainable Development Goals that we've taken away as Queer the Way and as all the work that we do at the Hub is that this is an intergenerational piece of work that we need to do. And what we've found for Queer the Way specifically is that we can work alongside both adults and youth, and that there's a lot of wisdom. We typically attribute wisdom with age, and that wisdom doesn't always come with age. Young people have a lot of amazing and brilliant work to be done and a lot of things to say, and we should honor that. So thank you so much.